There's a strange sentence appearing in conversations that never used to exist. It doesn't come from one profession, or one generation, or one country. It appears almost everywhere. I still have the job I always wanted, but it doesn't feel like the job I fell in love with. At first, that sounds contradictory. How can both things be true? The profession remains. The salary may even be higher. The responsibilities continue. Nothing dramatic seems to have happened, and yet, many people quietly feel as though something essential has disappeared. Most assume the answer is technology, or artificial intelligence, or changing industries. But perhaps those are only the visible expression of something much deeper, because the same feeling appears in professions that have almost nothing in common. Teachers describe it. Doctors describe it. Musicians describe it. Engineers describe it. Architects describe it. Lawyers, designers, researchers describe it. Different work, remarkably similar emotion. Perhaps this episode is not about what happened to work. Perhaps it is about what happened to the experience of doing it. Layer 1, the surface. For generations, people imagine work as something that evolved with them. The longer they practice, the more valuable their experience became. Years accumulated into judgment. Judgment became confidence. Confidence became mastery. And mastery transformed an occupation into a craft. That expectation still exists. Young professionals still imagine that experience will eventually allow them to leave a unique mark on what they do. But somewhere along the way, many experienced professionals begin describing a different feeling. Not failure, not exhaustion, distance. The work continues. The calendar remains full. Meetings still happen. Projects still arrive. Clients still call. Students still ask questions. Patients still need care. The activity survives, yet the emotional relationship with the activity begins to shift. It rarely happens through one dramatic event. Instead, it arrives quietly. A new procedure, a new approval, a new metric, a new template, a new workflow. Each individual change seems reasonable, almost invisible. But over years, the experience of working slowly becomes something different from what it once was. Not because people forgot how to do their profession, because the profession gradually stopped asking for the same parts of them. Layer 2, the pattern. The more professions you observe, the harder this pattern becomes to ignore. A teacher spends increasing amounts of time documenting learning instead of experiencing it. A physician discovers that navigating systems sometimes consumes as much attention of practicing medicine. A musician realizes that adapting to platforms often occupies the space once reserved for interpretation. An architect spends more energy coordinating processes than solving spatial problems. A software engineer notices that writing elegant code is becoming only one small part of a much larger operational system. None of these stories are identical, yet they seem connected by something invisible. People rarely say, "My profession disappeared." Instead, they say, "It doesn't feel the way it used to." That sentence deserves attention because it suggests that what changed was not the profession itself. It was the relationship between the professional and the profession. For a long time, meaningful work offered something beyond income. It offered the opportunity to exercise judgment, to observe something unique, to interpret, to decide, to respond in a way which reflected years of accumulated experience. That is what transformed work into craftsmanship, not the task itself. The space where a human being could live something uniquely their own, and perhaps that space has been quietly becoming smaller. Layer 3. The adaptation. When people describe this feeling, they often assume they have lost their passion. Perhaps that isn't what happened. Passion rarely disappears overnight. It slowly retreats when it no longer finds somewhere to live. For many people, the deepest satisfaction in work never came from simply completing tasks. It came from exercising judgment, knowing when to follow experience instead of procedure, recognizing an exception that no manual could predict, solving a problem that had never appeared in exactly the same way before. Those moments rarely attracted attention, but they quietly became the reason many people loved what they did. They were moments where experience mattered, where years of practice became visible, where the profession required not only knowledge, but the person behind the knowledge. That relationship crafted something difficult to measure: professional identity. People did not simply perform the work, they recognized themselves inside it. They could finish a project and quietly think, "Only I could have solved it exactly this way." Not because they were superior, because every experienced professional eventually develops judgment that cannot be copied perfectly. That is what years of practice quietly built, not information, discernment. And perhaps that is what has slowly begun to change. Across many professions, the work still needs to be completed. The deadlines still exist. The meetings still exist. The responsibilities still exist. But increasingly, the work asks for less interpretation than it once did. The work still needs your time. It slowly stops needing your judgment. That change is subtle enough that many people never consciously notice it. They only notice its emotional consequence. They stop bringing every part of themselves to work, not intentionally, not out of laziness, not because they stopped caring, because they gradually stop believing that more of themselves changes the outcome. And when people no longer feel that their deepest experience matters, they naturally begin protecting it. They comply, they perform, they deliver. But they quietly reserve a part of themselves that the profession no longer seems to require. From the outside, nothing appears different. Inside, the relationship has fundamentally changed. That may be why so many experienced professionals struggle to explain what they are grieving. Nothing visible disappeared. The profession remained. The office remained. The title remained. The paycheck remained. Yet the conversation between who they are and what they do became noticeably quieter. Layer 4. The system. It would be comforting to believe this transformation has a single cause, a particular technology, a particular company, a particular generation. But patterns this widespread rarely emerge from one source. They emerge from systems. Modern systems are designed around consistency. Consistency creates reliability. Reliability creates scale. Scale allows millions of people to receive similar outcomes, regardless of where they live or who performs the work. That has produced extraordinary progress. Medicine became safer. Engineering became more predictable. Knowledge became easier to distribute. Mistake became easier to detect. None of these achievements should be dismissed, but every system optimizes for something. And when consistency becomes the highest priority, variation naturally becomes less valuable. Human judgment is variation. It questions. It improvises. It notices exceptions. Sometimes it creates mistakes. Sometimes it creates breakthroughs. Systems naturally reward the reduction of uncertainty. Human beings often discover meaning inside uncertainty. Neither objective is inherently wrong. They simply serve different purposes. That is why so many professionals experience an invisible tension. They are becoming more efficient, while quietly feeling less essential. The profession continues to need workers, but it asks less often for the unique judgment that once gave the work its emotional weight. Perhaps that is one of the defining psychological adaptations of modern work. Not that people stop loving their professions, but that their professions gradually stop requiring the deepest parts of what they had spent years becoming. Layer 5. The recognition. Perhaps that is why so many people struggle to explain what feels different. They still know how to do their professions. They still solve problems. They still contribute. They still create value. From the outside, their careers appear successful. Yet many quietly describe a growing distance between themselves and the work they once loved. For a long time, people believed that experience would gradually make them more necessary, that every year spent practicing a profession would expand the space where their judgment mattered. Increasingly, many people experience the opposite. Their experience continues to grow, yet fewer moments seem to require it. That is difficult loss to describe, because nothing was officially taken away. No resignation, no dismissal, no retirement, no ending. The profession remained. The title remained. The meetings remained. The responsibilities remained. Life continued, but something far quieter began to disappear. The opportunity to recognize yourself inside your own work. Perhaps that is why so many people no longer describe work with excitement. They describe it with management, managing deadlines, managing expectations, managing workloads, managing change. Work slowly becomes something to maintain, instead of something through which part of your identity quietly comes alive. And perhaps that is the deepest transformation taking place. People are not simply adapting to new technologies, or new industries, or new systems. They are adapting to a world where the work increasingly values consistency. While the human spirit continues searching for significance, the strange thing is that neither side is entirely wrong. Modern systems became remarkably effective at producing reliable outcomes, But reliability and meaning have never been the same experience. One allows work to function. The other allows people to recognize themselves inside what they do. Perhaps that is why this loss is so difficult to name. It isn't the loss of employment. It isn't the loss of income. It isn't even the loss of a profession. It is the gradual disappearance of the place where years of experience once became something deeply personal. A place where judgment mattered, where interpretation mattered, where craftsmanship quietly lived. The work still exists. The profession still exists. The future of work will continue to evolve. But perhaps one of the defining psychological adaptations of our time has already begun. People have not stopped working. They have slowly stopped expecting their work to require the deepest part of who they are. And perhaps that is the hidden grief so many professionals have been carrying, without ever finding the words to describe it. The craft did not disappear because the job disappeared. The craft quietly disappeared long before the job ever did.